The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
The stakes are nothing less than our survival. And you and I and every American is being summoned to bold action. And so I have an announcement to make.
This is the sound of former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley at her rally earlier today. As she announces
I stand before you as the daughter of immigrants, as the proud wife of a combat veteran, and as the mom of two amazing children. I've served as governor of the great state of South Carolina and as America's ambassador to the United Nations. And above all else, I'm a grateful American citizen who knows our best days are yet to come if we unite and fight to save our country.
Okay. Yeah. I really thought she was going to make the announcement, not go off on this tangent.
I have devoted my life to this fight, and I'm just getting started.
All right. Yes, this is exciting stuff, Nikki. That sounds like a really genuine audience. They're not paid actors.
For a strong America, for a proud America, I am running for president of the United States of America.
There it is. There it is, everyone. Nikki Haley, second out the gate behind Donald Trump to announce their candidacy for the 2024 election, Republican. She already made it clear that she was the former governor of South Carolina, former ambassador to the United Nations. And of course, she is a regular talking head on all of conservative media. She does her best to make it seem as though America is diverse and not racist at all because of her story. And we know her story is one that is very similar to many minorities who rally with Republicans. Nikki Haley is no different than any other accomplice in history who decides to appease the racists, the bigots, the Nazis, the fascists, because they feel like that's the easiest way to their own personal power is by betraying whatever marginalized group they represent. She's not by herself. I'm just saying she kind of represents that, and she uses her voice, much like many minorities in the Republican Party. They leverage their voices to be the example of why this country is no longer racist. She used a specific example, citing that America couldn't be racist because she was the first woman of color governor back in 2011.
And take it from me, the first minority female governor in history, America is not a racist country.
Okay, well, thanks for clearing that up. Nothing says we're not racist than having to wait to 2011 to finally get a woman of color governor in the entire country. Totally not a racist, totally not a misogynistic country, Nikki Haley. But, you know, she's getting ahead. You know, and so long as she's getting ahead, she can sing the praises of America. She can run for president and raise her profile, even though she obviously is not going to win. This is the year of Ronald DeSantis and Donald Trump. That's the fight we're looking for. That's a fight that I think is going to be the most significant because they're both of those groups are doing their best to position themselves as the bigger fascist. This is the year of whether or not the Republican Party can get away with running a Nazi as their frontline candidate. That's what all this is leading to. Now, thank you, Nikki Haley, for providing us an opportunity to get into the real conversation. What 2024 is ultimately about, ladies, gentlemen, and non-gender conforming individuals, is about whether or not the United States of America can survive fascism? Or will it give in to one of two of the major parties that has given in itself to fascism? The Republican Party. So Nikki Haley is not really, she doesn't stand a chance. Let's just be real. She doesn't stand a chance because she does not fit the mold of the standard Republican. Now, mind you, the Republicans vote in lockstep when it comes to issues that harm us. They are committed to gutting Social Security and Medicare. They are committed to lowering taxes on the richest. Their responsibility to this country, they're lowering their responsibility, giving them tax giveaways to the tunes of trillions of dollars. They're committed to trickle-down economic theory, which we all know very clearly has never trickled down. This is what they're committed to. This is what they all vote for. The only difference is that Nikki Haley still manages to put a nice polish on top of the horrible policies that destroy people. And she doesn't go full bigot. Now, she'll coddle the bigots. She'll eat dinner with the bigots. She'll go and rally with the bigots. But she's not going to come out and be a full-throated bigot herself because, well, that's just not her personal brand. And that's why she's going to lose. Because what's popular in 2024 in this country is a competition between who can be the most bigoted fascist and get away with it in this country, and not only get away with it, but get nominated for the Republican ticket for president. That's what's happening right now. That's the two leading candidates in the Republican Party are both out jockeying one another to be the biggest fascist. Now, that tells you everything you need to know about the chances for Nikki Haley winning, but it should also tell you everything you need to know about the severity of the times in which we live. There's really no stopping Ron DeSantis because he has the perfect Achilles heel for America. And Donald Trump is now copying his MO, his doubling and tripling down on the attack against the LGBTQIA community. Donald Trump said, let me see if I can go one step further. So those are the things that really matter in 2024. And I just don't see Nikki Haley being bigoted enough to, or at least being the openly bigoted person to come out and say the things that Ron DeSantis is going to say or has said, and say the things that Donald Trump said. But Nikki Haley did get a little bit of her religious bigotry in there in the form of Pastor John Hagee. I've covered him before, but take a listen to his prayer that he gave at the announcement earlier today for Nikki Haley's candidacy for the presidency.
Our Father, which art in heaven, creator of heaven and earth, the mighty God who calls the stars by name, who holds the seven seas in the palms of his hand, who breathed into dust on creation's morning, and man became a living soul.
Now, please forgive the horrible audio. That's the feed from the Haley campaign. So they're not off to a high quality start. But that was, again, John Hagee. Now, he might just sound like some regular old, preacher. Actually, he phrased that up pretty good, in terms of preacher speak. That was a nice introduction to his prayer. But I want to make sure you know who John Hagee is. Notwithstanding, he's one of the leading voices on eschatology, the second coming of Christ. He's the one who really preaches the dispensationalism of. He's really big on the second coming prophecy, but he's also a leading voice in hatred towards the LGBTQIA community, particularly as it pertains to same-sex marriage. Take a listen in.
The Supreme Court in Washington has handed down its decision in a 5-4 ruling supporting same-sex marriage. But the Supreme Court in heaven has handed down its unanimous decision in a 3-0 ruling from God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 2:24, stating, "Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh." Marriage is exclusively between a man and a woman. Same-sex marriage will never be accepted in heaven as legitimate, so says God Almighty. This Supreme Court has made America the new Sodom and Gomorrah. God will have to judge America, or he's going to have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Okay, yeah, that's John Hagee. Now, that's who just launched the campaign for Nikki Haley. So while Nikki Haley isn't going to be the open and loud and avowed bigot that Donald Trump is right now and that Ron DeSantis is, she has certainly aligned herself with the bigots. Now, again, I want to be sure, I don't care what churches choose to perform gay marriages or not. That's their prerogative as individual churches. So I just want to throw this out here for free. What I care about is the fact that there are secular rights that this government offers to couples that are quote unquote married. And those rights are withheld based on someone's religious beliefs. Now, that's a violation of the Constitution. So I'm not, John Hagee, whatever he said in that clip, it just shows me that, one, he is focused I wonder how many child molestation cases there are from his church. Was it World Harvest, something out there in Texas? I wonder how many sexual assault cases are out there. That's a whole nother segment, a whole nother conversation. But this is who Nikki Haley is associating with. But still, I don't think it's going to be enough. It's not going to be enough because the threshold for president, the candidate for president from the Republican Party, the threshold, the bar for bigotry is so high that just getting a bigoted preacher to do the opening prayer is going to be woefully insufficient when it comes time to really get the vote out and ratchet up the red meat necessary to get the base riled up and get that nomination from the Republican MAGA base.
The Republicans are going to make a lot of noise about the debt ceiling, but this is theater. The debt ceiling crisis is entirely made up. If the Republicans hadn't pushed through the massive Trump tax cuts and slashed the audit rate for billionaires, our country wouldn't even hit the debt ceiling in the first Biden term. Americans should not buy the Republican debt ceiling scam, and responsible lawmakers should flat out refuse to cut a single dollar of support for hardworking Americans while House Republicans refuse to help unrig the tax system. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That was Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, as she made it clear that what we are dealing with right now is yet another example of kabuki theater. She didn't use those words. Those are my words, not hers. But every time we come around this point in the budget cycle, we are always confronted with the proposition of a default on our debt in this country. This is according to CNBC. The Congressional Budget Office has issued a new estimate of how long the Treasury Department can sustain its extraordinary measures to prevent a debt default, 5 to 8 more months. If Congress does not pass a debt ceiling increase before these measures are exhausted, the government will have to delay certain payments, default on its debt, or both, according to the CBO. Again, according to CNBC, the United States Treasury will exhaust its emergency measures to prevent a debt default sometime between July and September unless Congress raises the $31.4 trillion debt limit, the Congressional Budget Office projected Wednesday. The latest projection notes that the final date will be determined by tax revenue the IRS receives in April. Should those revenues decline significantly from the CBO's estimates, the extraordinary measures could be exhausted sooner, and the Treasury could run out of funds before July. We are at the stage of the decline in this country where not only are they, playing games with the debt ceiling, that's par for the course, but they've played games with it so long that the various institutions, that the Treasury has had to enact extraordinary measures, meaning they're having to pull out every trick in the book in order to continue paying our bills while the country is being held hostage by the Republican Party. That's where we are. In order to keep the lights on, because we have a party that seeks to exploit this country at every turn. The Republican Party, you realize we have this argument every year, every 2 years. We have this exact argument because Republicans understand that the collective memory around the debt ceiling debate, it drifts away. People forget that the Republicans do this every single cycle. They do this so that they can exploit every little thing they can out of this country. They have no morals about them whatsoever. They have no hesitation to use every opportunity at their disposal to harm Americans, and Elizabeth Warren is absolutely right. We shouldn't fall for it. And America has to come to terms with the fact that we're dealing with a faction of Republicans who will not only engage in bad faith to the point of defaulting on our debt, but undermining the viability of our nation altogether.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions.
Here we go. Very special welcome to our newest patron. Shout out to Ordinary People Media. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. This patron party is just for you. Oh, little DC go-go for everybody. Wait a minute. You too can become a part of this prestigious and prodigious patron family by going to patreon.com/The BPD Show, where you get twice the content, none of the commercial interruptions, and you get access to our bi-weekly patron party that is always live and always popping. Patreon.com/The BPD Show, and we'll be back right after this commercial break. Unless you're a patron, in which case you don't have any commercials.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Cheer. Spending some time organizing with churches through the summer, this past summer into the fall, organizing against Christian nationalism kind of took me back to when I was a kid and growing up. My dad was a pastor, and I've spent a lot of time in church. I feel connected with the church again. I feel connected with the Lord again, which really makes me wonder how it is that these false prophets of the Make America Great Again cult, these white evangelicals who are preaching not only a gospel of hate, but really contorting everything they know about the Bible, eschatology. I mentioned John Hagee earlier, like his end time prophecy. There's been so much bastardization of end time theology that has been committed by white evangelicals and the MAGA prophets in order to justify their political beliefs, in order to claim that Donald Trump was the actual winner, in order to of 2016, in order to justify whatever number of things they're justifying. We have an abundance of what I believe to be false prophets. And here's one, Julie Green, who does her tour with Michael Flynn. We've talked about Michael Flynn, who is running a complete and total psyop operation on this country using religiosity, using religion, using these false prophets in order to convince as many white evangelicals as possible that the correct move, the move that's ordained by God is one that will cause them to overthrow this country. Okay. Well, it's not just enough to believe that they have to overthrow this country in January 6th and everything else. Now, listen to this prophetess, Julie Green, as she describes what God told her about Canada, Iran, and Iraq joining forces to attack the United States in the near future. But don't worry, because God has everything God told her that he's got everything under control.
But remember what I have said about the so-called governmental powers. I am bringing them all down, and the world will know that I, and only I, am the God, the creator of heaven and earth, could have done this in this way. Canada is coming too. Iran and Iraq. They will all join forces against my eagle. But they won't see in their arrogance the traps that they are about to run into. Traps have been set, and I told you many things are going on in the waters. You can't see, but you are about to, saith the Lord.
Now, in terms of, level of threat, this is pretty basic. There's no real immediate pending threat that comes from this particular piece of prophecy, this clip that I just played for you. I mean, we're dealing with a cult of evangelical preachers who are actively calling for violence. So on the threat meter, this is pretty low. But when you put this into context of the ongoing frenzy that's being fed by the likes of Michael Flynn, this prophetess works with Michael Flynn. The frenzy is now being expanded out into international intrigue and foreign policy, and the idea that Canada is going to be in league with Iran and Iraq. Never mind the geopolitical problems of Iran and Iraq teaming up for anything. Okay, let's not talk about the difficulty of just having those two nations unified. Never mind the fact that, the point is that prophecy of this type, so-called prophecy, doesn't have to have any kind of accuracy at all. So much so that if she could get Iran and Iraq to team up on anything, she probably would get a Nobel Peace Prize. But that's besides the point. The point is to create a new frenzy point, a new place for them to incite a freaking out amongst their patrons, their supporters. They need people to freak out, and they need new conspiracies every day, every week. They have to feed the machine. And so now it's no longer just the pink-haired communists. It's no longer critical race theory. It's no longer the drag queens. It's Canada, Iran, and Iraq, who I'm sure would rather go to war with each other than to team up to go to war with us. Again, I am convinced that Duval, Jacksonville, Florida, is the epicenter for the fight against as well as fight from fascists. This is the tip of the spear for fascism. Everything that is being attempted across the country, all of their efforts and their mechanisms and machinations, they are happening simultaneously in the city of Jacksonville, the county of Duval. We discussed yesterday the multiple areas of attack that are being spearheaded, particularly by Moms for Liberty. Now, I want to start calling that group out specifically more and more and more, because I'm noticing they have the same MO as so many other conservative groups. They like to do what they do in the dark, but refuse any type of interviews. They refuse any type of debates. They don't want any public discourse around their actions, but they are actively overturning school board elections. They're actively seizing and holding hostage school board meetings. They are actively getting books banned all across the country, but they're doing so with a level of efficiency in Duval that is astonishing. All because of a group called Moms for Liberty, which is the political action portion of the fascist machine that we're currently living under. And all of their specialties are taking place right there in the city of Jacksonville. Now, yesterday we dealt with the risk assessment survey that was banned, that is no longer being administered in the school board of Duval County. Now, just a quick reminder, this was a survey that was used to gather data on the risky behavior of students, including some sexual activity. They asked questions about their sexuality and their sexual behavior and their different sexual encounters. They asked them their tendencies and their thoughts and ideations about suicide because they wanted to ascertain the health of the children. And we see Moms for Liberty being one of the groups that got that legislation, or rather that survey, struck down. We're dealing with people who are striking at data and information itself. One of their targets and their techniques is to undermine the ability for there to be objective decisions made together from observable data. Now, I said a lot, but I just want to break that down really quickly. There is a consensus that generally comes after enough research has been done on a particular issue. And that research creates a consensus that generally people who abide by science and the ability to falsify information and the scientific method, that's generally what we use to guide our march towards the future. But we are dealing with an ideology that is so committed to misinformation and so committed to destroying any narrative that is a threat to their belief system. They're so committed to it that they are absolutely targeting data itself. It's no longer sufficient to have data that they later on hire bad scientists to come up with and challenge the data with their bad research. That's no longer that's what they did 30, 40 years ago. What they're able to do now is simply get rid of research altogether. Or at least that's the first move that's taken place, and it's happening right there in Duval. Because Moms for Liberty, they've realized one thing. When you're dealing with teachers and administrators who are honestly just trying to keep their jobs, they're just trying to find out where happy hour is when the day is over. And I don't say that to insult teachers or administrators. I was one of the teachers who couldn't wait to get out of the classroom at the end of the day. But Moms for Liberty, they realize that all they really have to do is bark. All they have to do is complain. They've realized that whoever makes the most complaints, makes the most noise, whoever gives the school board the most headache, they get the results that they want. And the Republican Party, generally speaking, this is their MO. They are the minority in this country, but they're able to whine and complain and scream and holler so much so that they can get their way. And this is what Moms for Liberty is doing. And this is why books are being banned. This is why important critical research into the health of students in this county of Jackson and Duval. That's why that research is being banned. Because you have a political action force, Moms for Liberty, who understand that they can run up the scoreboard in the state of Florida because they have a governor who has opened the floodgates for fascism. And you have organizations like Moms for Liberty who are more than happy to run up the scoreboard on behalf of fascism. They're more than happy to test every single piece of legislation, the Stop Woke Act, the Don't Say Gay bill. They're more than happy to facilitate lawsuits, to fund them, to participate in them, all so that they can execute their religious worldview. keep an eye on Jacksonville. Keep an eye on Duval. I think it's going to continue to be the epicenter of so many important stories about the rise of fascism in this country. Patrons, stay tuned. Everyone else, I'll see you later. Or patreon.com, even better, patreon.com/the BPD show. We'll see you next time.